back to Bloom Through Faith. Thank you so much for being here. If you are a returning subscriber, and if you're new, welcome. I am so happy to have you here. So we have another story time with Diamond. In this specific video, I will be reading 2 books. And so I'm just going to get right into it. I know a lot of my videos can be really long. So I am going to try to be more cognizant of the time. So yeah, let's get started. So the first book that I am going to read to you is called Lifetimes, The Beautiful Way to Explain Death to Children. And the author and illustrator are Bryan, Mellonie, and Robert Ingpen. This is the cover book. See the trees and the swamp. Okay, let's get started. This is a beginning and an ending. There is a beginning and an ending for everything that is alive. In between is living. All around us, everywhere, beginnings and endings are going on all the time. With living in between. This is true for all living things, for plants, for people, for birds, for fish, for trees, for animals, even for the tiniest insect. Ant. Nothing that is alive goes on living forever. How long it lives depends on what it is and what happens while it is living. Sometimes living things become ill or they get hurt. Mostly, of course, they get better again, but there are times when they are so badly hurt or they are so ill that they die because they can no longer stay alive. This can happen when they are young or old or anywhere in between. It may be sad, but it is the way of all things, and it is true for everything that is alive. For plants, for people, for birds, for fish, for trees, for animals, even for the tiniest insect. There are lots of things in our world. Each one has its own special lifetime. I even think about the garden, right? Like we've noticed that in the spring, so much is emerging and so much is starting to, the seeds are starting to sprout. And then as the season goes on into summer and later on into spring, these plants and vegetables go and they find their way into a maturation, maturity, right? And so they get to full size. And then at some point, inevitably, we harvest those vegetables and then we share them with our family and cook a recipe with them, or we share them with neighbors. But as the seasons continue on, at some point it's then time to close out the garden season, and it's time to to prepare the soil for fall and for winter. And so there's a lot of growth and dying away and transition, and also living in that in between, that growth and that vibrancy. And yeah, so even when I think of a garden and the seasons and the ways that even we as humans change and evolve depending on the season as we get older, or again, as this book has mentioned, when someone gets sick, and you can be at any age. So death doesn't equate to old age. Trees that are tall and strong and grow slowly, standing in the sunshine and in the rain. Some of them live for a very long time indeed, as long as 100 years or more. That is their lifetime. And I also just wanted to point out too that you have annuals and you have perennials, and these are categories of different kinds of plants that grow seasonally. So they grow once a year, and then the other comes back each year. So that's also a lifetime and a lifespan even in itself. Rabbits and mice grow up in only a few weeks. Then they go on to live for a year or two, crunching up carrots and nibbling on cheese as they grow, until they grow old and very tired, and it is their time to die. This is how it happens to be for rabbits and mice. It is the way they live, and it is their lifetime. I love all the examples that this author is giving. Look, it's going into I was just talking about this, the vegetables in the garden. Flowers and vegetables planted as seeds at the beginning of spring, when the earth is warm, grow quickly to live through the heat of summer. The days pass and they become old during autumn when it is cooler. Then when winter comes and it is cold, they die. It is the way they live. That is their lifetime. Love this. You have roses. What else do you guys see in this picture? I see strawberries down here, tomatoes. Tell me in the comments what you all see in this photo. So much deliciousness. Okay, let's continue on. Butterflies live as butterflies for only a few weeks. Once they have dried their wings, they flutter and flit from leaf to flower. At first, they are bright and quick, but as time passes, they begin to slow down until finally they can go no further. They rest for a while and then they die. This is the way butterflies live, and that is their lifetime. And I also want to say that even the way that butterflies start, right? Like, they're caterpillars first, and then they go into the cocoon, and then they break out, and they have these beautiful wings they've transformed. And even that within itself, metamorphically, that is a transition, and that is a change, and that is a death within itself, going from one thing to another, or transitioning from one stage of life to another, or one position or one career to another. Like that within itself is a transition, but also it's saying goodbye to what was, and saying hello to what's present, and what's to come. So there's growth, and there's there's a sweet goodbye in those moments, right? And I'm curious if the caterpillar knows that it's one day going to be a butterfly. I'm curious to know, like, you all's thoughts when you see that type of transformation. Do you think that the insect knows that that will happen? And then once the butterfly does die, I think it's so interesting that it goes back into the earth, right? And it becomes this, a lot of vegetables, a lot of plants become this um, phosphate and this nitrogen, and um, just these minerals, and this beautiful, nourishing companion, I would say, to the soil. And so it becomes life in a new form, because that compost is then used in garden beds again, maybe in the next season, or in years to come. So there's beauty. There's beauty even in that, and seeing that transition, and the compost being a living, vibrant ecosystem. Okay, let's continue on. Birds grow up quite quickly too. It is often no more than a few months from the time they hatch until they are strong enough to fly and feed themselves. How long they live after that seems to depend upon their size. Mostly, the bigger they are, the longer they will be alive. That is the way birds live. Some for as long as 50 years. Others, no more than 2 or 3. But however long, it is their lifetime for each one. Anyone know what birds these are in this picture? Maybe what birds that they depict? This looks like a snake here. Let's see what's next. Fish swimming in lakes or in the sea can be so tiny it is hard to tell that they are there at all. Or so big that the only way to describe them is enormous. Again, as far as we know, it seems that the smaller they are, the shorter will be their lifetime. But that is how it is for fish. Their lives can be as little as a day or so, or as long as 80 or 90 years. It is the way they live, and those are their lifetimes. I love it. I love this book. It really helps us understand, like, what's happening. What's happening when someone passes away or animals pass away. And it shows that this is another book I feel that depicts it in the way where it's like, this is a matter of fact about life, and inherently within living there comes a time when we will say goodbye, and that goodbye does not necessarily have to be painful. And maybe it will be, and that's okay. Grief and experiencing that loss, or feeling it and being impacted by the loss, that's totally okay to experience that and to feel that. And also, um, I'm curious to really open up that conversation of what happens when we accept something as a matter of fact, and we notice that someone is walking towards death? You know, it's like this natural progression. And what 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 would closure look like? You know, would it be this sadness that's there? Or would it be this natural acceptance that this person lived their lifetime, and they accepted, and maybe those around them accepted that that was their lifetime, for however long or short that it may deem in our minds to be? And where is their beauty? Where is it that we can then notice their legacy and notice all the beauty that they shared with the world, and they shared with us in a personal experience? I'm really curious to hear how people feel about that. And if there's anything that you would like to share in the comments, please do. I'm really curious on where this is landing for you. And even if we want to talk about pets, right? Like, death is also something, it comes, and it's not something that's just inherently human either. So I'm really curious on how this is landing for those of you who have had pets in the past, or you have pets currently. What is your attitude, or what is your thoughts surrounding your pets with this conversation? Like, I'm really curious about that. Okay, and it says we left off at, it is the way they live, and those are their lifetimes. And then it says, and people. Well, like everything else that is alive, people have lifetimes too. They live for about 60 or 70 years, sometimes even longer, doing all the things that people do, like growing up and being grown up. It can happen, though, just as it does with other living things, that people become ill or they get hurt. Mostly, of course, they get better again, but there are times when they are so badly hurt or they are so ill that they die because they can no longer stay alive. It may be sad, but that is how it is for people. It is the way they live, and it is their lifetime. And I also want to share that, yes, this book mentions that people can live about 60 to 70 years or longer, and then we do have cases where there's infants, and there are small children, and there are people, around my age that are in their early to mid and late 20s, people in their 30s. So again, as this book has mentioned, that people can get really ill and people can get hurt. And there's no specific number that says this is the time that someone is destined to pass away. So no matter how long they are, or how short, lifetimes are really all the same. They have beginnings and endings, and there is living in between. That is how things are. For plants, for people, for birds, for fish, for animals, even for the tiniest insects everywhere. The end. I really, really enjoyed this book. And I'm wondering how it's landing for you. And if there's anything you would like to share in the comments, I would love to hear that. And if you enjoyed this video and this story, please like and subscribe. We would love to have you here, and when you subscribe, you're notified of whenever I drop a new video or when a new video is uploaded. And yeah, share with a friend. If there's a friend that you feel like this would really touch, or it's something that could be inspiring, or just maybe a new outlook or new viewpoint, or just another way of looking at death and explaining it, feel free to share it. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you. And I hope that you have a beautiful day, evening, or afternoon, wherever you are. Take good care, and I'll see you soon.